When the thoughts are calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected.
Well, welcome back to another episode. I am here with someone you actually might recognize. This is the real Seven, and I'm going to emphasize real because I don't know Seven for a long time, but from the moment I met you, that's actually what you radiated, was just a real dude. And it was during the pandemic that we met, and we were in a real important time where I think souls like yours and mine had to kind of come together, align. And we're, just a little bit of background. Seven, it's called The Real Seven Show. Yep. Right? Yep. So Eric has his own podcast, 28, I think you said, episodes.
I think 28, yeah.
Right? Interesting. I'm born on the 28th. There's going to be a lot of synchronicities. So all I could say is kick back, relax, and be aware. You'll be triggered. But we promise that the information delivered is coming from a place of not arrogance. It's coming from a place of, I think, humility. And that's the thing that I got from you. Being a Scorpio, not only the real Seven, a number that's literally ruled by the Occult, you're a real Scorpio. And Scorpio is the energy that rules the Occult. And rightfully so, because Scorpio is an energy that you can trust very deep and dark secrets with. However, on the flip side, it's pretty dangerous because in the wrong hands, the truth is something that can be used to manipulate you. And this is what religion has done. And we're going to talk about religion, and we're going to discern religion from spirituality. But ultimately, I want to just sort of drive home that, you know, this brother here is a Scorpio who I feel has a real Scorpio in the sense has done the Scorpio work of transcending and dying over and over again, like the snake must do in order to continue to live. And I think that's why we connected. Not to mention that my moon's also in Scorpio, so we have a deep interrelatedness right there, and you know, already just based on that, the sun and the moon, right, the yin and the yang. So yeah, without any further ado, welcome, brother. It's an honor to have you here.
Been a long time coming, for sure.
A long time coming. We did one live
2 years ago.
A couple years.
It's been a while.
Yeah,
it's been a long while.
Yeah, and that's when I was putting out 37, the series, and you helped me with the promotion. You were like right away, yeah, man, like let me get you on my live, because you had a great reach at that time, and you're like, hey, let me help you up, bro. It was like, it was no ever sense of like, like competition. It was instantly like, yo, you saw me as you're on the same mission.
End of the day, man, it's one of these things where when people decide to grow a platform, what you're going to notice is a sense of ego about them. They all kind of only want to promote things that are in their best interest, or that's going to make them look a certain way to a certain crowd in order to keep their following alive.
Totally.
I never cared. Right? Like the amount of companies that I've been able to promote on there, the little guy at the time, right? We were all trying to get rid of the big corporate entities, but everybody wasn't supporting the little guy. Right. So it's kind of like
pop shops. Yep.
Yeah, man. Like give those people the promotion they deserve. These are, the new entrepreneurs, the new people that are going to come up. I mean, we all love to talk about change, but who's really promoting that change? Right.
Exactly.
So there's never any ego about it, man. It was always really, really simple. It takes me 2 seconds to share your story, unless you're saying some wild shit. Then
right. Of course. Yeah, of course. Otherwise, it's real, recognized real.
Of course. That's what it has to be.
Yeah. So tell me, it was during the Scamdemic, and sometimes correct me if I call it a pandemic, but during the time of the Scamdemic, which is when we met, we have a mutual person whom we know, and we're not going to name anyone because we're not here to shame anyone.
Sure.
At the end of the day, there's only one of us out here. I think you agree with me that there's, existence is this multi-dimensional, like a diamond, which every face of this diamond is part of this diamond. Yeah. And thus, we don't want to point the fingers. We know only 3 point back, and we're not here to judge. However, I think we want to really carefully observe and dissect the what is and what is not, the truth from the fallacy, because this is another thing that, yes, Scorpio energy is here to do. And Virgo energy helps it do that, actually, because Virgo is that, assimilating and bringing the evidence together and organizing and so on and so forth. But during that time, I think we both can agree that we personally knew someone who was championing a cause, but as most were doing it for the applause. And I know we all get caught in that it's very much like part of the narcissistic syndrome of needing supply. Why? Because we're not connected to that which is inside. You know, and I've been there. I can never blame any or shame anyone else for being there. However, it's like, when do you realize and shift gears and you know?
Yeah.
I think this is what is happening in many ways all over the world. But what gears are we shifting into? We're in this identity crisis. No one's agreeing on the most important things, like the fact that you can't get milk from a bull or eggs from a rooster. Like this is a serious thing. Identity as human beings, being both masculine and feminine, but by denying the very nature, biological nature, we are. It's like saying, you know, it's okay to say the sky is red. No, you know what I mean? Like today, the grass is blue. Cool.
Yeah.
I know I'm touching on. We're going away.
It's good. It's just such a big topic. I'm trying to figure out the best place to
entry point.
Yeah, like what is the point of entry there? I think it's been long known that, you know, the fall of a society always comes when identity is something that is, you can't just lay down facts anymore. It becomes this thing where it's forbidden, and now there's how many genders and how many. The whole thing is wild, man. The whole thing is wild. Like, if me and somebody, regardless of who you are, where you are, what walk of life you come from, if we cannot even agree on the basic premise of male and female,
the most fundamental laws of nature,
exactly, then our discussion just doesn't need to continue.
That's right.
What's the point?
That's right.
What's the point? We're coming from completely different entry points. One is rooted in, you know, complete fact and reality, and the other is rooted in a superficial, dogmatic, artificially created, synthetic mindset that doesn't exist.
Yeah, ideology,
right.
Ideological.
And what do you think about the argument that they try to say where, oh, well, this has been something throughout history, and, you know, I'm constantly like, yeah, and it's also never been accepted.
Exactly.
Amongst history.
I believe it's been part of history because history repeats, right? It's a cyclical, and it's a cycle, and it's cyclical, and I love to add these two rhymes to cyclical. It's critical that we understand how the biblical describes the cyclical. Like astrology, we have 12 signs, and they each describe the qualities of time. So that way we can now go back and we can discern the difference between his story and he who's writing the story that is the agenda that we are all becoming written into the chapters of. And the only way to transcend his story is to understand her story. So like I said, when we were there on the dock, let's kind of let's start with the story. And what is the greatest story ever told? Well, we know it as religion, you know, as the Abrahamic religions, either, Islam or Christianity or Judaism. But what is the ritual of spirituality? Like, what is spirituality, and how does it compare to religion? And what happened here? How are we all on these different stories and not agreeing on the most fundamental things?
Now, part of me wants to say that spirituality now, and I guess I can call it neo-spirituality because it's the furthest thing from what spirituality is designed for. Like, we can agree there.
Yeah. Neo-spirituality.
Right, because religion is to religion the self.
Yes.
Right? And
reunite.
And regardless of how you look at it, you're giving yourself, your mind, your thoughts, who you are to an ideology that has been largely plagiarized over and over and over and over and over through time.
Yes.
So with that being said, if you find some internal, substance to it, if it can really add to your life and bring something of value to you, I'm all for it. I'm all for a bunch of people getting together at a church to celebrate a common cause and, inevitably do better for each other and bring in a communal aspect.
Worship.
I think that's good, right?
Worship. As you said, legion, like is a battalion.
Exactly.
And when you worship, you're like literally creating a warship, and you're doing spiritual, true work, shadow work of shining the light, not fighting the dark, but shining the light so much that it can't even exist in its presence. So yeah, go on. Like you're not like against religion.
No, not at all. I would say that religion has more of a problem with somebody who thinks like I do than I do with it in the sense of
And what's that thinking? Yeah, like
the thinking is simple, man. Like if you want to start getting into the religion that you're about to base your whole life around, shouldn't you want to know the symbology, the etymology, the iconography, the history, how this actually came to be? Or do you just want to take something that you call the New Testament and hold that in the highest regard, like it's not,
like nothing else
95%
exists.
bullshit?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now that like nothing else preceded.
Right, exactly. And then you get these things where it's like, oh, well, everything else is witchcraft and astrology is bad.
New
and
Age is demonic, and
I
yoga's
just-
bad for you.
Right, rather than being able to look at the nuances and be able to say, well, look, I'm going to say it like this. When I give people a different perspective on a book like the Bible, which is two bulls, you're talking about Jesus.
Bull.
Right, the Baal, right? Mm-hmm. When
like
I
the
tell
two towers of Babel.
Exactly.
Right.
So if I have the ability to sit here and say, look, me and you could read the exact same passage, you take it for what it is in the book, and I give you a completely different way to apply this to your life.
Right.
What's the problem here?
Right, because it's all about applying basic
Right.
instructions before leaving Earth. Bible.
Yeah.
However, it's in the interpretation as to how to apply where people start to disagree, and why. Because one takes it literally, and the other sees it spiritually.
Right. And even that is like, again, it's such a nuanced topic. Like it's very situational. It's a very individual thing. I've talked to a lot of Christians who are very grounded in their belief. They don't try to jam it down your throat.
Right.
And they, live and let live. They have their set of beliefs. You have yours, and you guys can, coexist without having to talk about the shitty
right.
parts of it or what you disagree on. Because like with everything else, bro, this, we love to focus on the 5% that we disagree on rather than the 95% that we do agree on.
Absolutely.
Because we just polarize everything almost to create divide.
Yep.
And then we're going to later on talk about how ego is just designed around divide in the self.
Totally.
But
it's a form of entertainment almost. It's like we
100%.
get bored and
Yeah.
we need to like fight. Otherwise we can't just like, we're just bored. It's boredom. And
I
an
agree.
idle mind, what do they say, is the devil's workshop. So very important that we don't allow ourselves to get bored. It's very important that we do use our sword, our sacred word. And you're going to break down a lot of the word, because I know you just listed a bunch: etymology, iconography. Like, man, as you were listing them, I was like about to just start beatboxing. You were dropping like he was dropping bars. Like, this is what happens too. I love it. Like they say the Holy Spirit, they define it in Christianity, the Holy Spirit speaking through him. To me, I hear it, the Holy Spirit, as lyric. And that's why I feel like Socrates, I think, is one of them said, man speaks in prose, but the gods speak in verse. And what's verse? Latin for song. So you're in the flow. That's to be part of the song in a way that you belong, and that your words will land and they'll emanate and radiate so strong. I'm gonna try not to swear, but this is a podcast where I don't care. The F-bomb, sometimes it calls for an F-bomb.
Sure.
It's all good. Just a little disclaimer. I do work with kids in schools and stuff like this, but sometimes the truth hurts, and sometimes so do the words, and may they. So be it, because there's some heavy topics here, and it's very serious when we have a manual that people are waving and thumping around as what's right. But like we've said, I can't hear your rightness through your righteousness, because the way you deliver it, it's like you trigger me. Your delivery triggers me by virtue of your virtuosity, that you're something better because you have this knowledge. If you're a true teacher, like a minister, a religious leader, you would have patience, humility, compassion, and all of these ingredients for us to...
With that being said, though, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate a little here, simply because I get that a lot. It's like, oh, your message would be a lot better if you didn't curse, or your message would be a lot better if it wasn't so blunt and to the point. And it's like, well, if the same way we expect our kids to go to school and we say, hey, man, how can you get a bunch of animals in the animal kingdom? The test is on climbing. Well, of course, the monkey's going to do well, and the rest of them are going to be considered failing.
Sure.
But we also need to think of that in the teacher's role, right? Like, you can't expect one teacher to be able to give a message that is going to resonate with everybody.
Teach all the subjects, you mean?
Right. Well, not even what I'm teaching. It's just not for everybody, right? And I'm not trying to be someone who speaks to everybody.
Right.
If it resonates, cool. If you dislike it, cool. But I think we have this thing right now where we're all trying to combat AI and get rid of, this emotionless machine that is, AI and technocratic
Technology.
society.
Yeah.
But then we sit here and we almost demonize emotion. Like we'll demonize somebody for being passionate about what they're saying
Right.
because you disagreed with their delivery.
Right.
At the end of the day, I've said this for years, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and my job is not to babysit your emotions.
Of course.
My job is to be able to just speak the truth as I see it. If I feel it and it feels right, yeah, the delivery can be off for some people, but for another person, it triggered them in the right way.
Right.
Where now this person wants to try to put what I said into practice.
Right.
So I just think we got to be careful with these days everybody's triggered. Whereas if you were to go to Europe, and you sit down with somebody from Russia, you're going to be insulted throughout the whole conversation because they're very brash and you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's just the way passion. They communicate. So it's kind of like, do we continue to demonize passion to always consider what somebody else is feeling? Or as a society, have we done too much considering how you're feeling?
Yeah.
And that's what's led us to straying away from what is.
Yeah. Because passion, is almost synonymous with fire. Passion is that which puts us into action. Mm-hmm. And emotion, if you think of it, energy is energy in motion.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, right? So being passionate sometimes could be a little bit intense. But like you said, I think so be it. May it trigger the person, because at least to trigger you means you have the opportunity to rise to the occasion of this invitation to meet me at this level of passion.
Sure.
That I exist at, that I think we should all exist at, because we should really be leaning into life and asking these questions, which is what this whole podcast
100%.
is about. Who, what, where, and why the fuck are we? Are we really here just to pay mortgages or death pledges, if we really break down that word, right? Are we really here to just, raise kids and not foster and nurture our own inner child? There's so much that we've lost as a result of the spells, the language. There's another one, death pledge. That we've lost our way, and that's why I feel like KRS-One said, and I always I resonate so deeply with this, especially KRS-One, just as an artist, as a hip hop artist, because he was the underground guy. He never sold out to the big,
till this
day. And he says, in the age of Aquarius, truth and knowledge will take care of us. And he's also just he's a Leo. He's got that big pipe roar, and he's like, I don't need no technology. I got my voice, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
The shit that comes through his mouth, man, the wisdom. And he wrote the gospel of hip hop. Some people don't even know that that book exists, almost like a religion, laying down the whole foundation for hip hop as a culture to be something more, something I saw from a long time ago. That's why I created Fit Hop. I'm like, it can't just be hip hop. Nas said it best. Hip hop is dead. Something had to die in hip hop for it to resurrect. And in any case, the idea that we are in an age where, yeah, man, we are being faced with these questions, and if we don't dare have these conversations, we're never going to understand what we're here for beyond paying bills, making money, and all this sensory, indulging in earthly pleasures. Right.
And when it comes to even just the words that you were saying, right? And I think that that's so important is understanding language and what it means.
Inner.
And right, I always say that because I don't stand under anything unless I genuinely don't comprehend what you're saying. Then I have no problem saying understanding. But
right, understand.
When it comes to what you're saying about money, right? People need to recognize that money is never been currency. It's subjective. It always had to do with an exchange of energy. Always.
Yes.
You give your time and energy from your existence to something to earn something in exchange. Yeah. But how much of that are you willing to give yourself to? If you're never, if you're not grounding, if you're not spending time with your kids, if you're not, having quality time with your family, friends, your spouse, your parents, your whatever it may be, then what the fuck is the money?
Right.
What does the money mean? Money is just, it's a currency, and we'll get into currency and how all that happens.
Yes. The only true currencies there's two of them, right? Time and attention. The only things we can really pay are time and attention. So, and yeah, you just said it, the currency, it comes back to the banks and the river banks, and we'll get into that, you know, and more, but yeah, going on with what you said, like passion and emotion, and why it is so important that we don't overly worry about triggering people and creating an emotional reaction, because maybe that's how we can make something happen. We need a reaction, not for the sake of, feeling like, you know, I made an impact, but like for the sake of like, hey, we need to make an impact here on society ourselves, because the impact's being made from higher up, like that Illuminati symbol. There's this eye, and it's in the capstone, and the capstone's separate from the rest of the pyramid. And why? Because that's that 1% of these self-appointed, self-elected gods, you know, they think of themselves as, who have this right to just rule over the rest of us. But we have to ask why the eye, and why one eye. You said money, mono, Greek, mono is one, and what's left? I, one eye. So the very thing that we've used to measure currency, the real flow of that which we can only pay time and attention, is actually what they've put on every bill. And it's just an eye that looks at us. And what do they say? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So everyone's blind, and there you go. We're all blindly trying to make this money and spend the money, thinking we're actually just using a tool that has been created to create further the power differential that we are with credit. And the way the banking system works, how we're going deeper and deeper into, which is why we're coming to this point where there has to be this great reset or something that they call a new world order, so that we can pay the debt. That's all the reset is about, to pay the debt. But like, how do we end up with this debt? And then we could talk about that. Like, you know, how I don't want to go into like too much pointing the fingers of religions. I know there's a big thing between the Jews and the truth is, it's humans. Just like being Spartan, it didn't matter whether it was Persians and Greeks. What happened at the Battle of Thermopylae was 300 united and died for love. They fought the good fight. Even though the Persian Empire, Xerxes came and said, you know, and that was his plan, to take over, and he was taking over. They said, all right, but not under our watch, and we're going to die fighting. So it's not about Greeks, and I'm not about the human, the nationalism and the pride. Even though I'm Greek, I love that. You know, we have a lot of history, medicine, you know, and this and that. It's like, where did that human nature serve to help humanity, and where did it serve to break humanity? That I'm interested in. So, can you tell us a little bit about your knowledge about money? Because Scorpio also rules money. It rules the sacral. The S is where we get the symbol of money, you know what I mean? The staff and the S, the serpent. Talk to us a little bit. You have so much knowledge on that.
Well, what do you want to know about
the
money?
words about like the bank and like and all of that etymological, like, you know.
Oh man,
how our souls are sold, literally, like from birth. Like, break that all down real quick.
So first of all, there's a massive correlation between money, currency, the water, and our existence. Now, we are all ruled under something called Maritime admiralty law. And I know a lot of people wonder why politicians can get away with things and why the government can get away with things. And it's essentially because as we roll through life, you are a non-living entity. Your soul is essentially given, even though it's not true, but I'll explain how that happens. Your soul is essentially given up, and you consent to being ruled right from birth. And the way they tie that in is, so when you're born, you go through your mother's birth canal. But even pre that, the semen will enter the vessel, right?
The semen.
Right. So we start off as semen. We enter the woman, the vessel. Right. And then we go down the canal when we're born, the birth canal. It's crazy that they all just, you know, nothing's coincidence. They don't just have the same names for no reason.
Right. So you can't make this shit up.
Right. You go down the birth canal, and then you come out of your mother, and you're handed to a doctor. And this is an individual that's going to give you your citizenship. Why is all of this right off the hop have to do with ships and pirates? Why? Because, well, pirates were the first merchants, the pirate, And they were the ones who controlled all the money back in the day. That's why Vanguard, you talk about companies like that, what's their logo? Well, it's the black pirate ship.
Right.
Right. And they own what, 15% of every purchase made on the planet.
Right.
So once you're handed to the doctor and given your citizenship, well, it used to be common
now
practice.
You're on board their ship and you deal with shit in the way that they
now you're
determine.
signing your life away, right?
Yeah.
And now
the
just
soul
like,
as well. They stamp your soul, right?
Well, that's
the
coming.
soul. Interesting
Exactly.
that your foot is called the base of your foot is called your soul, and they stamp that before it touches the earth.
Exactly. So after you leave and you're handed to the doctor, given your citizenship, well, now you're automatically part of the system because now they give you your birth certificate. And when a ship offloads its cargo onto shore, it's called a berth, BERTH. And then what happens after a birth? Well, after the ship berths all of its cargo, they sign it off, they give it a certificate, and then boom, here's your receipt of transaction.
We've received your receipt of transaction.
So once you sign that birth certificate for your child, and I know there's a lot of common law shit surrounded around it. Do I think common law is going to work in today's society? Absolutely not. I think you're delusional if you think it will.
In the same way they say that common sense is not so common, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But everybody hears this, what I'm saying, and they're like, oh my God, there's got to be a way. Yeah. And it's like, listen to me. If they want to just kick down your door with a squad and throw you in a jail cell, your little common law is not going to work.
That's right.
They hold the power structure, and that's just the reality of it.
And we saw that happening in China. They were welding doors shut.
Yeah, they'll do whatever they want. And that's why thinking that you own anything is hilarious. So all you can really do is learn how to play within that system because the moment you're given your birth certificate, all of a sudden your name is written in all caps.
Capitis diminutus maximus.
And that's exactly how they take you essentially away from your body. And now they own your physical. And this is the tie between a lot of religion and religious beliefs and the power system at play, because if they've already taken your quote unquote soul, they used to stamp the baby's foot, which is the sole of your foot, your soul. And you know why? Because that's your legal standing. It's the first right angle, right? When you stand up, it's the first right angle connected to earth, right? So once they remove this from you, well, now you're part of the system. And then it's like, okay, vaccine, religion, what do you believe in? Implant this, go to school, get indoctrinated. And it's like, you're just inundated with all of this shit. So when I look at a person and I ask them, who are you? The response you get is, oh, I'm a carpenter. I'm a podcast host. No. That's not what I asked you. I said, who are you? And I guarantee you 99.999% of people will not know that answer.
Yeah.
They give you something superficial that plays into the system that they've been told they belong to. Yes. Whether you can claim you're free all you want, you can say this and that, but you can speak to somebody and in one sense or another, every one of us is indoctrinated by the system. That's how we live, man.
The 12-step program we call the educational system. That's a 12 grades of a 12-step.
And where did that stem from?
Was it the Rothschilds, I think, right?
Well, no, but just listen to what you're saying, right? The 12-step program.
12-step.
Right? You got 12 disciples.
12 disciples.
Right? Everything is just a recycled version of something else to keep the mind in this one area. Dude, our existence is it's sought after.
I actually never saw that 12-step, like the 12 disciples. They always have these commonalities, and part of it is how they're wielding the magic. They keep us, acquiescence is the word for it, unconsciously agreeing, so they wash their hands clean.
Exactly.
And they're allowed to treat us as these corporate, what is the word corporate? Corpse, dead entities.
Yep.
Trade us on the
stock market.
Stock market, you know what I mean, and create value out of us based on how many lives, years we might live, and they have all just like in life insurances. They have like algorithms and calculations, basically putting a value, a dollar amount on you, so that we can basically trade stocks. Exactly, it's all just commerce. And what is commerce? It's the reason why Jesus, if we get biblical, flips the tables, man. He's like, what are you doing in here? This is not to say commerce is bad, business is bad.
Right.
But there's a time and place for it, and it should be done in an ethical way. Not where, like, you know, the banking system where you have this credit that's constantly being generated that you'll never pay back. So eventually when they call in the debt, like you said, they can weld the door shut. They can do whatever they want. Why? Because you acquiesced.
No, because your whole life you're on ice. You're an investment. That's the corpse, right? Corpses are cold. So that's why cold hard cash, that's what they call it. But if you look at the etymology of it, a cache also means to store something.
Cash, yeah.
So throughout your life,
hard
they
drive.
store you. And this is why you're born to a white coat. You're born to one of the white Templars, and you're seen away by a black coat, right? The light and the dark, the night and the day, it all correlates. So once they get rid of you, they can finally take away their investment. And now you start getting into, why are we so unhealthy? Why is the food contaminated? Why are we being indoctrinated? Why are we obese?
Yeah.
Why are we sick? Why are we all on pharmacological medicines that stems from pharmakia, which is all witchcraft back in the day, and conjuring up a whole bunch of shit to give to people, right? It all stems from a very occultist, druidic.
Let's talk about the Druids. Can we not that, because you just dropped and you mentioned this before we even got on camera here. Who are the Druids and why it is they? You know what I mean? They stand there with their spines, their 33 vertebrae, straight. And talk about the Druids a little bit. People don't even. I never heard that word till recently, and I've been someone who's been researching for a long time. So
I think more importantly, I think everybody can do their research onto who the Druids are. I think it's more important to talk about Druidic influence, and how that's plaguing us today.
Absolutely.
Because all the Druidic practices that we have, and we talked about this a little before the show, even Christianity, and for the Christian listeners, this isn't anyone coming at you. This is just a little history for you. Even the Temple of Solomon, in the middle of it, was something called a yew tree. And the yew tree, the only thing that could eat from a yew tree was the ram without dying. So this is where you get the horned being of the devil. This is where this all comes from.
And
right?
hold on a second. You're talking about metaphorically or no, literally?
Literally in history, yes.
Oh, interesting.
So this is where that Druidic symbolism kind of lies. And since this Druidic practice has been kind of, thrown and thrust upon us all, and we don't even know it, the Druids, much like judges, they would go and find these lines when they were, creating our countries and our borders. And what they would do is they would send a Druid out there with his staff, and he would stamp 3 times. 1,
stake
2,
in the
3.
ground.
When you go to court, how many times does a judge hit the gavel to commence and finish court?
Is it 3 times?
It's 3 times. And what is the gavel? It's wood.
It's wood.
You're talking about that worship of trees back in the day that's still very present today.
Worship of trees. You mean like Hollywood? The trees they use to create the spells,
and then you talk
the holly
about
tree?
This gets into the etymology of it now. So now you're talking about how we still have this in society today. Well, you have these Druids who worship this yew tree, which is where you get Jesus, Ezus yew, right?
The lamb, the ram.
Right. So
Lamb of God.
And he was crucified on what? A wooden cross, right? And today, well, now these people own the world. So you go into an office and, well, they have a branch, right? And their staff, what's a staff made of, right? Their staff will deal with you. So we're consistently doing this recycled, all these pantheons from back in the day are still implemented in society.
And we're participating
every day
with our own consent.
That's why, how many people that still say good morning? What are you mourning?
I hate that one.
What are you mourning?
Calimera.
Grand Rising.
Yeah, what are you mourning?
There's nothing to mourn.
Grand Rising, good day, buongiorno, calimera. Like there's all the languages, and it's an interesting one. It's actually English that has the most spell casting because it's the latest language.
When you're writing out a word, it's spelling, right? You're writing in cursive. We're constantly just
putting you in a sentence,
and it's all alchemical. You can say that it doesn't matter, but well, we can go to Dr. Masaru Emoto.
Yes,
he's the one who recognized that thoughts, words, intentions can influence the molecular structure of water,
creating literally fractals, mandalas,
right? And we are anywhere from like 70% water to 90% on the molecular level.
That's right.
So
at conception, 98%, 99%.
There you go, perfect, right from birth.
Right from birth.
So.
Going back to the currency, like you said, this all comes back to water.
It all ties
the
into
embryonic waters from which we emerge.
Well, and this is where even like the concept of Mother Mary and where all that comes from. Well, they're talking about the sun setting into the horizon over the water. The sun is birthed from the waters and lifted up to the sky.
The sun. Right?
Hours of the day, Horus of the day. We still celebrate
hours. Hours is Horus. It's an anagram for
exactly.
Horus. So the whole plagiarism, like you were talking about, these are nothing new, and the only way to see that is to study the occult, to learn the language of the subconscious, which is this language that they're using to basically rule us all, have our acquiescence, and yes, wash their hands clean so they get away with it. That's a big thing.
So what I was going to say about the acquiescence actually is there's a really interesting phenomena, right, where people seem to think that there's too many of us, they never could. And it's like, I would like people to just take a child from India, for example. There are these small children that are walking and leading these giant buffaloes and elephants by the nose with no fear. Yeah. With just a staff in hand, just a stick in hand. So all they need is for you to mentally consent and to think that what you're hearing is reality in order for them to be able to lead you, or matter of fact, you to lead yourself down the path which they create. Even when you speak to somebody about something and they immediately just jump to the left brain and there's like, oh, well, where's the scientific studies? Right. And it's like, dude, you don't need a scientific study to know, for instance, that artificial sugar is not good for you. Yeah. It's like, well, how do you know? The papers don't say it. Well, I know easily because I'm an organic being, and that is artificial sugar. That's right. You know what I mean? Like artificial and organic. No, we're designed to consume organic food. Absolutely. Period. There's nothing more to that. It ends there. It's dead there. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yes, big one. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's where the burden of knowledge is.
Let's talk about the burden of knowledge.
The burden and power of knowledge. Because to know and not apply, like Bruce Lee said, is to not know at all. And that hurts when you know and you can't apply. Like, what do you do with having so much knowledge of these things and you want to apply it? You want to like stand up against it. Man, I even during the time of the Scamdemic, and boom, right away they were like beep, beep. They came straight to my address, served me with a summons to court, which, by the way, just so everyone knows, it's okay. They haven't followed up with. It's going to get dropped. Why? Because that was just another way to flex on me.
Compliance test.
That's it. Compliance test.
100%.
If we can scare guys like Nico, who have a roar as loud as he does and is able to assimilate and disseminate as well as he does because he can articulate, then at least we can get through what we're doing here, past all these policies. And even during that period, actually collect a whole bunch of fines that people went and hired lawyers to go and negotiate to bring the balance. And I do this because Libra, that's all that is in court. And why in court? Just to go back real quick, he hits it 3 times, like you said, the Druids did with the stake. In court, you go behind the door there, right? You actually enter a board. The only way for them to deal with us in court is to literally have us enter back on the ship, the citizenship.
Exactly.
The artifice.
And there's even more to that. So when you walk into court, it's called a court because it's a game. Because it's a systematic game. You play tennis on a court. You play basketball on a court. That's right. It is all the game of the system. And the moment that the judge says, all rise, he's speaking to your metaphorical dead entity. He's not talking to you. If you don't rise the moment you stand, you rise from the dead. Yes. Or you can sit there and say, I don't partake in this system. Yes. And then you walk in and you're supposed to hire this lawyer, a liar, to represent you. To represent you as the dead entity in the court of law, land, air, water. Right? So you're sitting in front of this judge who wears a black coat, the same way the Templars who see you off to death give you a black coat.
I was going to say, all rise sounds like church. It's like...
Yeah.
What's the difference? All right, guys. Yeah. All right, I rang the bell.
Yeah.
So it's all magic. It's all spell magic. All of it is alchemical. Legalese. It's its own actual language.
Yeah, because I don't know if people know like the straw man, but
that's the dead entity you were talking about.
Exactly. That's who you are to them. That's how you're identified.
That's how you're a number. That's how you're a corporation. You're
even
not
police, man. People think police are there to serve and protect. That's why it ends at serve and protect, not serve and protect the citizens. They are all signed to the crown. The crown has nothing to do with you. And then go look at the crown and look at the first emblem you see on every royal crown in their chest is what? It's the cross.
The cross.
Right, you're talking about
that's right. Yeah.
In individuals who are they're completely sold to old cults that are just represented in a way of whatever they call royalty now. And I would just like to challenge people to say, hey, man, a lot of your pagan beliefs that you hate, I'm sorry to tell you, but you follow and the system follows.
That's right.
So if you're both playing on level playing ground, then are you free?
Yes.
Is what you're listening to correct?
And back to royalty. Royalty, a word that Raja, you said you'll see always on the crown, which represents royalty, you'll see a cross.
Knights of
What's
Malta
the other
cross,
thing we
yeah.
always see in royalty or associated with majesty? Raja is the word in Sanskrit. It's the lion. So they've appropriated this symbol of the voice, and the power, the kingdom, the majesty, the ruler.
Agreed.
By this symbol that they just put on this crown so that you can get down on your knee until they ring their little bell, or they smack their stake down with it, like you said, and then you have to rise. Otherwise, get back down because I wear the crown. Like, wow.
Yeah. And you brought that correlation to church. How many times did they ring a bell in church on Sunday?
Yes.
3.
Yes.
It's 3 rings.
I remember that.
You see what I'm saying? So, and all of your landlines, like every border that you see, the Druids would go out there and stamp what they would call the sacred ground, and those are your borders that they have today.
Yes,
that's how they got the capitals of cities. And
the obelisks. They would erect obelisks like in DC.
Oh, that's a whole other Saturnian worship.
Oh, okay,
that's
I was gonna say
discussion.
I don't know if we're gonna jump in that. Those are literally like antennas, apparently. Like so is the CN Tower. The obelisks.
Yeah, all of them are formulated to where if you triangulate them, they're supposed to be able to somehow measure up to Saturn. I haven't. It's not honestly when there's a certain realm of things that just don't apply to me whatsoever.
Right.
That I just, you know what I mean?
It's a difference between consciousness and awareness. I'm aware that's there, but I don't really care because my awareness needs to be. I'm conscious of this, and you're present to what matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what else? Like, can you? I mean, we can continue to go down the etymological sort of path.
I think there's a lot more to etymology though, and
so let's keep unpacking
words that people use and don't even recognize how they've been applied to you, like anything that ends in ion. Ion, collaboration, creation, all of it. Generating ions, future people. We're all created just of ions. Preparation, to prepare the ions. To everything that ends in ion, you'll recognize as either a word of direction or a word of power or a word of wisdom in some way or another.
Interesting.
It's always talking like to generate ions. That's why they're focused on the next generation specifically, right? So
and there's a lot of them. Ion. I never thought of that. Even like the planet, like the word plane, and this is a big one that's going to lead us down another rabbit hole, but the planet and the globalists and whether now it's a globe or it's a plane, but like you see these words hidden within words, and you can't say that. You can say it's just a coincidence, but I don't believe that the people who have this knowledge, this hidden and forbidden knowledge, didn't create and devise this in such a way that would make it look like a coincidence purposely so it can so easily be dismissed as such. It's so easy to dismiss something when it sounds like so out there.
Yeah. And I know you're applying this to like the flat earth ideology.
Yes. Which is a big one, man. And I don't know where I'm at.
And I'm not going to even start to talk about it.
No.
Mainly because I don't fucking care, man.
Yeah. It doesn't affect me.
Right. And maybe it does. Maybe our astrology is all wrong for that reason. Maybe you just never know, right?
They got maps, though, that show both a globular and a plane-based system. What I think about flat Earth is like Marty Leeds, one of my favorite. He created it was called Flat Earth, subtitle, The Ultimate Litmus Test. The only thing for Flat Earth, I think, if we're going to apply it and get something of value from Flat Earth, the discussion, is you need to start asking better questions. You need to start asking why you accept the answers from those who have given you the answers to the questions.
Yeah. I'll never shut down the... a lot of people like to immediately, dismiss it. Oh, this guy, he's, you're out to lunch or conspiracy theorists. It's like, hold on, man. There's a lot of people out there who are having discussions with, pilots and astronauts and the best of the best in their field, and they're destroying them in debates. Right?
Totally.
Like when it's like, okay, well, how can you
Totally.
prove this number? And they're like, well, we know this number. They're like, well, how do you know this number? And
Right.
then they're like, oh, because of this theory.
Formula
And they're like,
or
okay,
theory, yeah.
what is this theory? And then the
Right.
more they go down the rabbit hole, it's basically like you've just designed an entire ideology off of shit.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with listening to it. I
Out
have
of
no
regurgitated
problem
shit.
listening to a debate. I'm not going to sit here and tell you at this point, I don't know if it's flat or round. I don't care.
No.
Right?
Like we
It's
said,
just-
it doesn't affect you
But
directly.
I think the dismissal of something
Yes.
because you've been told
That's right.
that's what it is.
That's
I
the
mean,
point.
I think that's a problem.
Ignorance, as Mark Passio called that. It's like it's ignoring. It's not just being ignorant, I didn't know, and
Yeah.
being inquisitive, like the skeptic. It's being the cynic or the arrogant Neil, what's his name, deGrasse. And yeah, bro, I'll go head to head with Neil any day. I know you're brilliant, but all that left brain stuff, if not assimilated and grounded viscerally in her story, it's just useless because all it is the regurgitation of information from this 12-step indoctrination that you continue to pass on to the next generation. Oh my God, what did I just do? I changed all the ions in you. And this is what they're doing. They're using rhythm and cadence and rhyme, and that's what incantation is. And that's what religion is doing and continuing to do, even without a church, because they know the church is you. The congregation, and a word etymologically that means body, you are the one doing the service by serving this. And we are in this age now where we know that Aquarius is like the rebel in the zodiac. And we're moving from Pisces, the age, the constellation that represents the verb of the human faculty of belief, imagination, like Pisces, imagination, right? I believe, Pisces. We're moving from
What was Jesus?
Pisces, right?
Correct.
Representing feeding everyone with 2 fish.
So when
right?
you read something like Revelations and you're like, oh, it's the end times, it's like, no, it's just the end of that era.
Eon, age, right? So, and we're moving into the next age of Aquarius where we have this rebellious energy. It's also an energy that represents intercommunication. It represents sovereignty. It represents androgenicity, humanity, the collective. And it's the verb I know. So we're going from I believe to I know. Now, what you believe in, we know. That's why religion flourished in the age of Pisces, because it's based on beliefs. But now we're going into this age of knowledge, and it's amazing to think that they have successfully hijacked this age of knowledge by simply using algorithms that can censor and dictate what information and knowledge you are being exposed to. And we can see it right now on this planet in China. What censorship looks like and what it can do, look no further than that nation over there. And man, it's unfortunate because like here I am like now aware again, and I care and I want to do something. I want to put my and you're right. You said you're doing all this effort and time and
this
energy.
is doing, man.
We're doing the best that we can do. It's not just like we're here talking all this shit. I know you're going to be like getting your gun ready and you're going to be like hunting and you're going to be continuing to practice the real essence of what it means to be an indigenous human being. Indigenous meaning like connected to the land, organic, like you just said. Going and fetching your own fish, catching your own fish, fetching your own, food. I think that is not to be taken too lightly. And I feel sometimes it can be hard because this is back to the burden of knowledge. We can get hard on ourselves. And that's a very Scorpio archetypal thing. It can be very hard on self and feel this like heavy weight and gravity of like, well, I'm guilty because I'm not doing this. I know this and I'm not doing this. It's like, well, there's only so much we can do. We have to also, and I think this is where the word and why it's the transforming path for this archetype, surrender. Like the first step in the 12-step program, like Alcoholics Anonymous, right, that they practice. There's this one beautiful prayer. It's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? So speaking of the difference, let's also talk about the difference between the opposite sign, Scorpio, which is Taurus, the fixed earth, and the fixation of this deep, profound, esoteric, occult wisdom into actual practical wisdom, because you mentioned the word integration and integrity and how they're so interrelated. And let's start like trying to bring now maybe some more practical examples, like where we're at, what can we do, some solutions with regards to the lack, for example, of testosterone. You were just talking to me a little bit about peptides. Like let's move into some of that. Like what?
I guess you can just start with consumption. I think that's a good place to start with everything. And people would think consumption just means, what you're eating. And I think that that's honestly such a small part of consumption. Consumption is everything that enters the mind.
Yes.
And what you allow to enter your mind is exactly what's going to guide the physical.
Totally.
It's all going to start in your head and what you believe and what you think and how you think about the self. So you'll see a lot of people just scrolling mindlessly through Instagram and taking in all this information and direct energy weapons and fires, and it's like, yeah, that's cool, but like, okay, after you're done scrolling, what's your plan? What are you doing in your life? Are you gonna just go through all that and be like, oh, they're killing us, and then skip the dishes?
Right.
Like, are you going to actually implement something that's valuable to you? Or are you just going to continually just bitch and complain about things and not actually make the change?
Totally, man.
So I think that is where everything starts, is with you. Whether it's your fitness journey, whether it's your, journey into a new topic or a new realm of study, it all starts with you. Nothing works unless you do.
That's right.
Nothing
works unless you do. I love that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course. And your consent.
Yes.
How many people talk about consent in a way that has to do with two individuals consenting to something, but have you consented with yourself to, okay, I consent to give myself this time slot, this space for me to become whatever it is that I'm trying to be? And I think that's the problem that I see with this. I know people get upset that I almost harp on the freedom community or whatever, but it's like, even when you go to these rallies, I went to 2 of them. And all I realized was I was looking around at a bunch of people who would rather play victim than take the bull by the horns, speaking of Taurus, and to really, take charge of their lives. Because it's one thing to understand what's going on, but if you understand everything outside of you and not yourself, dude, you're back to square one, if not worse.
Yeah. Like you said, standing under. You are at the whimsical of the wind. You're just you're directionless. And like you said, take charge, like the bull that charges. Choose a focus and let it fire you up, light you up, like that scorpionic fire and passion, which, even though Scorpio's a water sign, it's got like Hades. His hair is fire, man. He's passionate. So charged for that bullseye. And that's one thing about the energy of Scorpio and Taurus. Like, when we really do focus and consistently, persistently, relentlessly work towards something, man, like, we can achieve anything. Whether it's a transformation of the physical body. You see some people losing 150 pounds.
Which is huge. Right?
That's one of the most beautiful success stories for me. When I see those videos, man, I've never been, that to know like what it's like, but I have been out of shape and I know what it feels like to have that conscience burden. Like, we know when we're in shape and we know when we're not. We know when we're out of breath and why we're out of breath, just from that one staircase, and how it weighs heavily on us.
Yeah, man.
And it should, because if it did come back to the whole practical, like, indigenous you, how are you going to catch the fish? How are you going to hunt, and how are you going to feed yourself? Fitness. How about we work with fitness, because you practice martial arts, you don't just lift weights. I know that about you, that you're boxing, you're doing functional.
Yeah, and it's not one of these things like I'm not out there, fighting or competing, or it's just an art form that I love. I was in karate from very, very young age. A friend of mine as a child, Danny Santabono, his dad used to own a kickboxing gym, and we spent weekend after weekend after weekend out there, just for the arts, man. And it's something that I've never lost. I've always been, very athletic, always played football, always played basketball, always played rugby, always played lacrosse. I was
Lacrosse even, eh? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, again, something that I never, did as like a team sport, but, and when your school has these things in gym class and, this year is all based around these two sports is something that I love. The football team I was on, the basketball team I was on.
Cool.
So athletics is it's just a big part of my life. I was an active kid. It was much different then than it is now. We used to know where everybody was by all the bikes on the front lawn, right? We were always out there. And you think about how fit we used to be, and this wasn't long ago, man. I'm 35. We're talking when I was a kid. That's fuck all when, like, in the grand scheme of things. And we were always outside, man. There was only like a couple kids that were out of shape and big in school.
And it was very clear why they were indulging usually in junk food, and they had parents that weren't really caring much for the quality of the food, just that they stuffed their faces and eat till they were full, which I don't believe we should eat until we're full. We should eat a portion of food that represents an amount that we need, and drink, like I say, water, not when you're thirsty, because at that point it's too late. Like, we need to be in tune with this vessel, because at the end of the day, like I said, church, your body is church. It's church is a metaphor for what we're trying to achieve in our own physical bodies personally. So like you said, it's not just what you eat, it's what you read, it's what you stream that's going to then dictate how you move, how long you can move for, endurance, which is a really big one. Yeah. Endurance, because that's one thing I know about. Also, Scorpio energy will out endure anyone. Endurance is a big one. What the tortoise and the hare. Like, the hare is incredible. He's flipping and sprinting, but it's the tortoise that wins, because he just endures, and he's slow and steady, continues to consistent. Take action.
No, I agree, man. And when it comes to what we were talking about being out of shape and such, I remember during the whole pandemic, that was the first time I couldn't even remember the last time that I wasn't consistently at a gym or wasn't consistently working on fitness. And I felt horrible, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, just completely drained, largely because I just wasn't taking care of myself. I was thinking of kind of, the quote unquote, the metaphorical fight at hand, and, just allowing myself to slip. And it was
forgetting about that fight. The first fight.
The main fight, because I think back to it as a person who is my own, harshest critic. And I think, how much better could I have done in my messaging? How much more, people could I have influenced had I been in the shape that I was pre this, event happening? And now it's one of these things where it's kind of like, look, man, got my shit together. It's been like a year of consistency, and now I'm starting to get that mental hunger again to okay, it's time to really get into the boxing gym. It's time to start competing again, and it's time to really start becoming something. And I say this to kind of influence people that are listening to know that the better of physical shape that you are in, the more you spend on your physical self and making sure that is in order, you're just going to be more well-equipped to do other things.
Absolutely.
You're going to want more out of your life, because you're like, okay, well, I'm conquering this fitness thing. What else can I conquer?
That's right. What else
no one
can
take it away from you.
Yeah.
That's all you. When you look in the mirror,
totally.
And I preach all the time that everything you do is your fault.
Yes.
Everything is your fault. And people say, oh, well, I've had, sexual abuse or whatever as a child, or that's not my fault. And it's like, you're missing the point. I want you to think of everything as your fault, because when you're a great partner, a great husband, a great wife, a great father, great mother, physically fit, that's all your fault too.
That's right.
And you need to start recognizing that the more you take, it's all about accountability.
By fault, you mean your creation. I like the word creation. It's just more, it feels better for me, but I get what you're saying. It's cause and effect. It's the consequence of. So it's recognizing that how you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. Start with the first, you said, and main fight, and beat that one, which is the overcoming the, I'd rather just watch some, YouTube, or I'd rather you got to conquer that, because then that translates to every other aspect, for
Yeah,
sure.
because it's a good
for
thing
sure.
to feel guilty that you're sitting down for too long.
It is.
It's a great thing for you to
Yeah.
feel that, man.
That's right.
And this goes back to that point of contention, which is triggering.
Mm.
You know, people almost get triggered by the fact that even yourself wants yourself to do more with yourself. It's okay, man. Like, yeah, you're allowed to sit there and watch TV and stuff, but put it in your mind that, like, I need to earn my hour in front of the TV.
Yes.
And then it feels better.
Yes,
because
it
now you know
does.
that when you're
Yes.
sitting there, usually when I'm watching TV, like last night, I ran almost 5 miles
Wow.
on the treadmill and got home. And this was after, so workout first, treadmill after, got home completely beat, knees sore, feet sore, sweat a ton. And then I sat down to watch the UFC event, and I was eating wholesome food, nourishing my body, resting my body, hanging out
Replenishing.
with my dogs,
Yes.
you know, replenishing the soul, the body, and that in itself, man, is something that people have lost. They think, like we were talking about outside, for whatever reason now it's celebrated to go through a hard week of work to dog your body and then go get shit-faced drunk and poison yourself.
On
when you start-
phytoestrogen-filled beer, and then wonder why you got bitch tits when, you know what I mean? Like, and your testosterone is low, and we celebrate this together as men.
Yeah, it's wild,
it's
man.
wild, yeah.
I don't know why we why is it? Why do you think it is that we celebrate with things that are just not advantageous to us? We always celebrate with things that are harmful. What is that?
I feel it's the fact that we are sociological beings and creatures of such habit, and like to say birds of the same feather flock together. And some people have a sharper moral compass. Some people have a louder inner voice that of guilt that does say, like, yo, you know, this, you haven't sweat in, 4 days now. You haven't, brought your heart rate above, like, 85. Some people don't. So why is it that we fall into the one pattern or the other? It really has a lot to do with your terrain, your environment, your, therefore, occupation. Like, I realized when I, during the Scamdemic, had to change gears. Instead of taking on this contract and training, celebrities, all of a sudden I was pulling rebar. And bro, like, it changed me. Even though I'm a very strong, solid, like, leader kind of person, being in such an environment of such a low donkey, like, just vibration.
Sure,
I also, like, just wanted to, at the end of the week, just like, fuck it, and just have a beer, a fucking wings. And it's like, it really has to do a lot with environment. And that's why it's so important that we surround ourselves, in environments, bro, and with people. Yeah. So that we can, and with people that there's a healthy competition as well with, like you mentioned about, competing. I was going to ask you, like, what is your feeling about why would you compete? Some people just train to train. Some people train because they want to go and fight. But like the idea of healthy competition, I'd love to talk about being Spartan, like coming from a genealogy that, like, literally the Spartans, they said the more we sweat in training, the less we bled in war. And therefore, like, they would spar with each other, and they were testing their skills always, so that when it really did come down to it, and what is war? It's not, the Battle of Thermopylae today. The war is overcoming the desire to sit there and scroll, or, you know what I mean? To tap back into, like, Pornhub or whatever it is. Like, the war is to overcome the need to just easily get the dopamine hit. And, if you have friends that you can, like, call up or you're with a partner who, it's like, we gymming it today, babe? Yeah, we're gymming it. You know what I mean? Then to know you have that, it's like you'll be so much more accountable to getting out there and feeling the dopamine hit from the right place. Absolutely. And then you come back after a good workout. Like you said, you want to eat good food. Your body knows right away when you're
100%.
training it what it needs
Absolutely.
to rehabilitate.
Just the smells, there's certain things, right? Like if after I'm done training, I could drive by a McDonald's and not get anywhere near the same craving. Like, you got to learn how to differentiate it. Like, yes, I'm hungry, but I smell something that I know is not advantageous. Would I eat it because I'm hungry? I guess if I had to. But when I get home and I cook, a steak and have a cup of cherries and, a sweet potato, like I'll start salivating as I'm cooking. My body knows like,
Yeah,
yes,
this
like
is what I want.
adequate nutrition.
Yeah.
I know how to digest this. I know what it is. And then it's going to find a way to, dispel that, pull what it needs from it, partition those nutrients correctly.
Yep.
Whereas when you think you're nourishing yourself, like a calorie is not a calorie, dude. Like, we need to stop thinking that you can go eat candy and like, oh, fits in my macros. It's like, no, man, nourish the body.
Yeah.
Forget about everything else. Go back to the original. What are humans designed to eat? And that's what you eat. You're going to feel the best, mental clarity, and it'll honestly just make you a better person. People think nutrition has to do with anything. No, man, like you can be hitting your macros and still be so malnutritioned.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Nutrition, man. Yeah. You are what you eat, again. And that's metaphor for not just physical, macro, micro, but as well as what you intake, for sure.
100%.
But yeah, man, like food is mood. And that's another thing. Because people are so depressed and so feeling defeated, because society is being defeated. We see it everywhere we look. It's easy to thus reach for, because you're in the bad mood, so you reach for the bad food, and that's why it's so important to get back in the gym, back in the ring, and get your body desiring the right thing. It knows what it wants, but it won't know unless you take it there. You got to rev the engine, you got to otherwise, we know that, man. A parked car goes bad pretty quick,
That's true.
The brakes start, seizing and the joints start squeaking, and yeah, man, like you got to keep, life is movement, and if you're not moving, you're not improving. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So environment and friends and influence, and nowadays there's no excuse, man. You can tune into someone on YouTube or Instagram and just follow. There's so many. You don't have to physically. I know a lot of you are isolated. You live in some place, you know what I mean, where you don't have physically that boy you can call up and go and take a run with or whatever it is. But there's video games, and there's all these other things that you're using instead of following. There's all kinds of like incredible leaders and fitness teachers giving tons of inspiration.
Yeah.
So,
well, dude, that's exactly how I was able to not be physically at a boxing gym for X amount of years, even though it's something that I love. And the environment, and that's why I love the gym to lift weights, is the environment. When you walk into a door, it's the intention that's set.
Yes.
I am not here to play around. I'm here for physical growth. And that's it. And that's kind of where I'm at in my life with the whole competing thing. I've competed with myself to say no more shit food, only organic. We made that choice like 3 years ago, and we make our own bread. We got our own chickens.
Oh, wicked.
We buy, only grass-fed beef from, some of the best farmers
local
that we know.
Farmers, yeah.
Summertime comes, all of our produce is always coming from a farmer's market. I know where it's come from. We hunt for our own turkey, deer, fill the freezer with, fresh fish from Pigeon Lake. And we set days for this. We go out as a family,
Amazing.
me, the kids, we sit there and we catch, 100, 200 fish, sit in the backyard,
Amazing.
got them all, and then our chickens get all the heads, and we keep this organic cycle of life together just so that we're nourishing ourselves. And all of that is competition. And I think I've just reached a point in my life where I'm actively seeking competition. I just went through this little thing where, businesses are growing, they're doing fine. Family's great, finances are great, and I feel more at war with myself than ever. And I have to ask myself why. And it's like, well, because as a man, I don't have a fight in front of me, and I hate that. I don't like that. I need to always be in a state of push-pull. And what's the best way to do that? Well, I'm in my room, with my bag and doing the boxing footwork and really working on this and getting my cardio completely ready. Why? Because by stepping in there and enjoying that healthy competition,
that's your push-pull, man.
That's the war. It's like, how much more can I do outside of that? I'll be honest with you, dude. I have no desire to be a millionaire. I have no desire to be rich. I have enough. My kids are going to inherit a lot of the things that are tangible to life, firearms, side-by-sides, skill sets, knowledge, But when it comes to money, like if that's your competition, bro, like if you're at competition to see how good, do it. Do whatever that competition is for you as an individual. That's where you need to be. And for
Lights
me
you up.
personally, it's competing. I mean, as a man, I feel like everybody should be throwing hands and feeling good and lifting weights, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's part of it. And actually, as somebody who likes to, I haven't missed a UFC event in time. I watch all the amateur kickboxing, boxing
Yeah.
fights, BJJ fights.
Yeah.
It's always on my TV. It's literally my
You
life.
like to analyze like strategy. What was the turning point? Why did the dude win? That's
right. There's so much to it, and not only that, man. For me, I'm very well acquainted with pain because of the things that I've been through personally, and I see the value in pain.
In pain.
And how the more you run from pain, the less equipped you are for when pain comes. And I feel like pain is a very valuable teacher because it teaches you things you never forget. Why? Because it hurt. So when I watch these guys going through pain in these training camps, and then to go out there in front of the bright lights and do something that is incredibly hard, I respect these people, I have so much admiration for them being able to sit there and do that. And I think that's what it is. I think it's more of a humanity thing where I can look and say, fuck yeah, they put in the work. One thing I'll never do is be like, oh, this guy should have did this, or this guy didn't do good. Dude, he fucking stepped in there, man.
That's right. And that
are
alone.
you kidding me? Who cares? He did the work.
That's
Who am I
right.
to criticize? I'm not in there.
To even get in a ring is already a win.
It's huge, man. It's huge.
Yeah.
So I think people need to get back to that, man. Actively seek out the suck. Like you go out there and cold plunge in the lake. That's
Right.
not fun, man.
That's
By
right.
any stretch of the word.
No.
Your body doesn't like it.
No.
Your mind doesn't like it.
Exactly.
Afterwards it does. But to get out there and do it, your inner
Exactly.
bitch is screaming like, nah,
Exactly.
you don't have to do it today, bro.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
Isn't this coffee cup warm? Like, what are you going to go out
Exactly.
there for? But that's
Exactly.
actively seeking out the suck. And the only benefit to that is you. Who can take that away from you?
That's
if you
right.
start your day conquering something, that's why I'm a huge advocate for a cold shower first thing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you go in, you do something you didn't want to do, and you've won the first
That's right.
part of your day.
That's right. Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, because life is
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And if it's not, then you're not evolving. That's it. You're not evolving. If you don't have a problem to solve, something to fix, then you're just going to become okay with brokenness. And that's because, we are creatures of habit.
Yeah.
So our habits, our environments, our influence, and there's no excuse now. Where you live, like, we can tune in. There's so many online, and it's so easy to get distracted. Or now what's happening, and I even find it myself, I'm following so many that inspire me, and I can just get sucked into the tunnel
Yeah.
of just seeing all the incredible
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
And then I just at some point have to remember, like, no, put the phone down. I'll send myself a couple to my other account or whatever it is to or bookmark, you know what I mean? Like certain things. But I recognize when I need to, like, okay, now it's my turn. And sometimes filming yourself doing it is good because it makes you
Yeah.
accountable, not necessarily
Absolutely.
to post, but it puts you accountability. Like, not everyone has the ability to, when you're not being watched, show up.
Yeah.
But that's when it
Yeah.
matters the most. So until then, what I say is use that same device that you're scrolling and trolling with, and actually flip that, selfie, hit record, and do the damn thing, whatever it is, and do that once a week, twice a week, whatever it is, and watch how your form and confidence just develop and evolve.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
dude,
right there
absolutely.
helps with the burden of the
Absolutely.
knowledge, going back to, like,
Yeah.
I can't do this, I can't change the system, or but I can change me.
Yeah.
And I can watch those
Mhm.
increments of change and get the reward of self-confidence that comes from
Yeah.
that, and
Then
that's
after-
priceless.
After a couple months, then you have all of that for yourself, and just instead of scrolling for an hour that day, watch your videos backwards from day one to your most recent, and watch the most amazing thing that you're going to watch, and that's your growth, man.
Your growth.
Like,
Yeah.
watch yourself start at nothing. Dude, it was only like a month and a half ago where I started saying, I'm going to take, distance running on the treadmill until the weather gets nice and I can start doing road work. But how much can I run today? And my cardio was terrible. Like, I took up powerlifting for a while, right? And then it's like, now I'm at this place where, like, a 3 mile, a 4 mile, a 5 mile is, common practice.
Yeah.
And every time
It's
I look in the
beautiful,
mirror,
man.
man, I know, like, holy fuck, dude, you did, like, that's mine.
Yeah, that's
Nobody can
right.
take that away from me.
That's right.
And that's this is what the message that I like to promote is that message of it's fucking you versus you, man. Who
That's it.
cares what they say? Dude, I know a guy that I've had on my podcast. I won't mention his name, but a dude that was a drug addict turned Muay Thai fighter turned, now a person who helps people in active recovery.
Amazing.
And that shit's inspiring, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
and he's the one who put the bug in my ear, like, hey, man, why don't you go compete again? Because I was like, okay, I'm going to move away from the Real 7 show and start doing combat sports coverage. And he was like, you should probably do, an amateur fight or two just to really get your credentials. And for me, mentally, that's a great fucking challenge, man.
Yeah,
it's like,
man.
yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Right? So seek out the people around you as well,
Mm-hmm.
where instead of having competitions of, hey, who could get more shit-faced this weekend?
Yeah.
How about you have competitions like the one I have with my parents, for instance, who's like, who can eat more organic?
Yeah.
Who can,
Yeah.
hit a better PR this week? Who
Healthy
can,
comp.
dude?
Yeah.
And it's changed my life, and in turn, my children are watching.
They're seeing,
my
yep.
audience is watching.
Yes.
They're paying attention to what I'm doing, because you can talk all you want,
Sure.
but if you are not walking that, that's why
Yes.
with your fit hop, it's
Absolutely,
such a
man.
good thing. Is like, yeah, I speak these words and then I put them into practice.
Yeah.
And you target the best people that you possibly could, which is the children, to
Youth.
mold their minds in a way that says, I can physically do this shit. That's going to change their mental, their spiritual, their
Mm-hmm. Totally, man.
education.
The whole trajectory
everything.
of the future,
Yeah,
for that
man.
matter. Seeing is believing, and there's nothing better than showing up so that there could be a testament, a visceral testament for another, especially a youth, because that's I was one of those kids that not everyone has that, and I tell them this in my workshops and my shows. I want you to look at the kid next to you and just say, I could do that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe don't say that's easy. A lot of times when they're like, oh, that's so easy, I'll be like, all right, so then come lead with me. But like, the key is look at the guy next to you and say, I can do that too. And now you already are in the right state and frame of mind. And I was like that when I was sitting there, and all it took, the only difference between you and me being able to do what you see, is I was one of those kids that said, I can do it. That's it. So when it starts with the talk, and then you actually throw the towel over the fence, like metaphorically, meaning now you got to go get it. You know what I mean? Now you got to go and get it. So you said it, now go get it.
That's
And
huge.
don't regret it if you can't get it. Recognize that there was growth and there was something attained in the process.
Exactly.
Right? And that's all, man. Just keep on setting goals and make them realistic. And this is what we learn as personal trainers when you get certified, like how to help people make realistic goals. You know what I mean? Because setting the goal is important. Like, not too much that you're going to lose the mojo real quick, because it's like, I can't do this, man. But also not too low either. And, you're talking about running 5 miles on the treadmill. One of the machines we love to use is the rowing machine. You just row. And Julia's smiling because literally you sit there and it's not rocket science. You hit just row, and then you have you can see miles per second.
Talking about with the slide seat.
Is with the slide
Push with
sheet,
your
yeah,
legs, pull with your arms, let it go. Push,
beautiful tool, because you can see what gets measured gets managed, and by being able to measure your progress, you're able to manage it.
Yeah.
And when you're measuring it, it's just like the double slit experiment. We realize that like waves collapse into freaking particles when observed, based on the fact that it was being observed. So by measuring your progress, by writing down, my plank was 13 seconds today, and then writing down tomorrow that it was 15 seconds, even though it was only 2 more. Like, after a couple of weeks, by looking at the progress, like you just said about the video, and seeing your growth, it does give you this sense of like real achievement, and it just motivates you to continue to grow. And when we're rowing, it's beautiful because you can actually like set either within 5 minutes, how many meters can I row? Or you could say, I'm going to row, and you fix the length. How long does it take me to row 1,000 meters? But like, just like in science, you know what I mean? You take something, control it, right? The scientific experiment, control one variable, and then test for, you control Z and you test for X and Y.
Exactly.
Or you control X and you know what I'm saying? And just be the guinea pig, and continue to apply this scientific experiment, this scientific process, and experiment on yourself. And you're going to find that if your hypothesis is grounded in something realistic, but also like optimistic and willing, to really like push and stretch yourself, you're gonna get results.
For sure, man. And here's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people will listen to this for the initial kind of, etymological or spiritual talk. And I understand that, or understand rather, that, people want to hear that because it's very polarizing. But what we've just spent the last 40 minutes talking about, this is the real shit. This is where the change happens.
Exactly.
All the rest is just information.
Yes.
But I ask people this question, is it information or are you falling in formation? Which one are you doing? Are you taking this in and just falling in formation to where you're still just, now you're in a cycle of victim, a victim mindset? And I want to let people know that the conspiratorial mind in itself is predicated and created on you having a victim mindset. It's you saying the world is this, so I need to be this, or this is so fucked up that I can never be this person.
Yes.
And it's like, no, man, like you can have the knowledge, but all of that needs to come after you having knowledge of the self.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
like
yes.
you can learn all you want, but it's like, okay, cool. Is that all you do?
Yes.
And then after that, what do you do? Because I know a lot of these people who know a shitload about, everything that I'm talking about.
Yes.
And then you look at them and they're, grossly out of shape.
Absolutely.
They feel terrible.
Absolutely.
And it's like, but you're literally putting yourself into a position to fall into the system that you say you hate.
In the
Take your
wrong
health
formation.
back, bro.
I love that.
Right?
Information and in the wrong formation. What are you doing? How do you utilize the information?
They don't. That's the problem.
So again, the knowledge is a burden and it's a power, and it's thus up to you with your free will to how you use that knowledge.
Yeah.
And absolutely, bro, like we spent the first part of this podcast talking about some deep, hidden, forbidden information, but then like here we are talking about the grounding and integration
Solutions,
of it.
man.
Solutions, yes. And when there's no way you can change that which is outside of you, well, you can always change that which is inside of you, which might be how long you planked this morning. How much of the inner bitch you got over this week, how many days of the week. So I thank you, bro, like for bringing it to that. And when we walked outside on our break, you're like, yeah, at what point do you want to, because I want to like get to the actual practical stuff. And it's true, because the Scorpio is balanced by the Taurus by saying, okay, you have the endurance and you have this power, but now it's like set the goal and charge like a bull and get it. And this is it, man. We got through a whole bunch, and I feel like we can definitely get through a lot more. I definitely want to have you back on because,
of course, man.
Dude, honestly, like there's so much we haven't even begun to unpack. But I'm sure you can just from that, I don't know how long we've been going now. You get the premise that here's a guy, a father, a family guy, a doer, one who's a human being, but also a human doing, and finding a balance between those two. Deep meaning, but then actually applying. And I respect your fight. You said you're 35. I didn't realize how old you were. But age is just a number. You're an old soul, and what matters is that you're whatever age you are, you're showing up like your inner child is at peace, is thriving. And you're not just here trying to survive. You're here thriving, and you're showing your kids. And that alone is participating. And that's the solution to all of this. Everything else will sort itself out. I'm sure. Okay, that's one thing I want to leave off with is, what is your spiritual practice? Like, do you pray? Do you meditate? What is your connection directly you find the most with God? When do you feel you're almost to the point that your eyes tear up? Because that's an indication of when you're really connected. Like you saw me earlier when I was sharing with you my journey that I just had. Like I teared up a little bit.
Sure.
Like what have you found helps you get to that point? Because I think that's something a lot of men especially have trouble with. Yeah,
dude, especially men. Spiritual practice. I don't think I do anything conventional. Like I don't pray. I personally don't find it. Maybe I do, but I just maybe. Do
you speak out loud ever to yourself? Do you talk to yourself when you're out there hunting?
Not necessarily. I keep a lot of inner dialogue. Like me and the voice in my head are constantly, problem solving and overthinking.
And you're doing that like while you're taking a walk?
Usually while I'm driving.
While you're driving,
because now I have the ability to, drive to and from the shop by myself, and I do a lot of thinking. a lot of crying.
That's
it
beautiful.
just, it is what
That's
it is,
beautiful.
man. That's the time, right? Because
There
end of the
is.
day, as a man, I need to show up at my household and leave the shit at the door.
Yes.
And it just kind of is what it is.
There is something about being in locomotion.
Yeah, 100%.
When you're reflecting.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a valuable time that all men use and none of them display it. It's like, oh, I've never seen my dad cry. It's like, yeah, put a GoPro on your dad's car on his way to work. And I assure you that, man, that is his time to give himself the space to be like, all right, now nobody has to see this. I can kind of deal with, my shit undercover. But I just make sure every morning, the moment that I hop into my car, back out of my driveway, turn left, the sun is right there. I always make sure I say Grand Rising, Mr. Sun. I appreciate you. Thank you. And that actually stems from Rosicrucianism, like the Rosicrucians, like making sure that you're always greeting the sun. It's almost like an alchemical thing. And I'll be honest with you, you call it what you want, but my life has gone a lot better. Nothing bad ever happens. I'm very, very conscious of universal law. Because there's this weird phenomenon where now, like in that spiritual community, you have individuals who create their own truth and their own practice. And it's like, you can do that, but are you considering how that is coinciding with universal law? Or are you just going off on your own path, praying that the universe is going to somehow just bow to you? No, man. Like, you can have your practice, but base it on the laws of our existence. And I swear you'll be a lot happier. And the biggest thing that everybody seems to overlook, that is the greatest practice. It has changed my life. I started this after the death of our son, and it has been the greatest thing that I've ever done, is wake up every single fucking morning, and the first words out of your mouth is, I'm grateful.
I'm grateful.
That's it. Sit up out of your bed and say, and when you're like, oh, I want to hit the snooze button, or oh, I got to go to work, or oh, dude, there's somebody in a hospital bed right now that will never be able to get out of that bed, and you're bitching that you have the ability to get up and go to your bathroom and then go about your day and work. Yeah. Dude, like, I think gratitude is where everything stems from. And if you can't, at the very least, have gratitude, you're fucked. Yes. You're dead in the water.
You're absolutely right. That is the key. I remember in the big, the documentary, whatever it was, The Secret, right? That was the key to manifesting your dreams, was first being grateful what you already have.
Yeah, man.
And that takes humility, and that is the access, that and practice, because practice does humble us. We realize that over, the course of that practice, whether it's yoga on a mat or, rowing or running or swimming or whatever it is, that, like, you run out of breath. And by running out of breath, if your breath is like, in Greek, breath is another word. Aeda is like your confidence, right? Or your arrogance. It's good to run out of that shit and recognize when it's not there. What is there? Awareness and consciousness and breath itself to be grateful for, a life that I exist. Yeah. And honestly, like you mentioned something, and I know it's a deep one. We're not going to go too much into it. And I know you had a sister who just recently experienced it. Actually, she posted something about having lost a child as a parent.
Yeah.
And I just want to thank you for like what happened there. And then I don't know how it was that she manifested in my sphere. I think she saw I was going through some stuff where I was being like allegations were being made against me.
Right,
and she tuned in, and then I tuned into her, and I realized it was just crazy, the synchronicities. But what happens when we dare to let go of the victim mentality and powerfully powerfully show up in life as, like you said, grateful first for the fact that you even get to get up and use that washroom yourself. Not with the help of some nurse that, what I'm saying? Like, these things we overlook so easily.
100%, man.
I think by returning to that, that's what it means to be humble. And for the human experience, I always say this, human, the prefix is hum or H-U-M, and it's the same three letters in humility and also humor. And that was one of the things you said. We were laughing a little bit before we got on cam and recording here, but you have a good sense of humor, and that's so important, man, because life it's crazy and it's hard, but like it's paradoxical. And if we can see the humor in our humanity,
of course, man,
it's so much easier being human.
It's like one of those things, right? Like the other day I posted something about this grossly overweight woman, and she was boxing, and it says like, trying to get head movement like Canelo, and I love those videos.
Who's Canelo?
Like, Canelo's a professional boxer.
Okay.
But there's this page that it came from where it just shows you like the most savage of comments.
Okay.
And they were like, "Oh, future KFC champion," or but and dude. And here's the thing, like
you share some funny stuff. I get a good laugh on your
two
page.
Things can exist at
sure.
once. If I ever met this woman or she was on live with me, I would tell her exactly how fucking proud of her I am at her accomplishments. But I'll laugh at a good joke.
Yeah.
I'm a dude who held my son in my arms while he passed away. I will laugh my ass off at a good child loss joke. Because you're making light of something that sucks. And that's okay. I feel like you need to almost be able to laugh it off for you to be able to rationalize these things that are actually happening. Because what happens if you just look around the world and see all the bad shit that's happening and that's all you think about it? This is bad, it's terrible. Guess where your head's going to go?
Absolutely.
If you can laugh about it, dude, like future KFC champion, bro, I was fucking crying.
Yeah.
Right? And I had some people message like, I thought that you were like a positive guy. It's like, this is where you miss the point. Like, why do you have to be one or the other? I'm a human being. I encompass all things.
All things.
Right? I need to be able to laugh at the things that suck. When things hurt, like when I'm on, at the gym and doing my set and it hurts like hell, I'm there like an asshole by myself laughing.
Yeah.
Like, dude, this sucks
At your
so
own failure.
bad, man. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Or you're hunting and then it starts, pissing rain and you just packed up camp and you're like, fuck, now I got to walk kilometers in this.
Yeah.
I'll start laughing and singing to myself like a psych.
Nice.
But that's what we need to do, man. You need to start being able to be real enough with yourself and not take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
Because even when our son passed, I for a couple of years, it was very, it was weird, man. I felt like I was kind of like floating in an ether and I couldn't find a ledge to grab to just like stop that shit for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a feeling I'll never be able to explain to you.
I could never understand that or relate that. And I am a parent, so I can imagine, only start to try to imagine. But I have a best friend I grew up with who also had a stillborn. And it so much affected him that he left this country. He had to change his whole life, move to Australia.
Just to mentally move, just to switch things up. But I was really open when I did a podcast about it and kind of finally talked about it. And the one thing that I chalked it up to when I was real with myself about the experience was at that point in my life, I honestly couldn't imagine myself raising a son. I don't think it was my time yet. I think it was meant for this to happen, to be like, listen, here's all your old habits. You just fucking lost, bro, like hard. You could lose a fight is one thing, right? Like you kind of lick your wounds. And what happens when there's a fucking wound inside of you forever and you're never going to get rid of it? It's kind of like I finally was able to look myself in the mirror, take a stoic approach and say, listen, bro, you weren't even ready to be a father to a little boy yet. You weren't ready to guide, to lead, to show strength, to, teach him how to manage his anger and his, all the trials and tribulations that a man goes through that nobody talks about.
Right.
I wasn't ready to fucking do that.
So that's there going back to what we talked about. And as a Scorpio, that is your true north. It's surrender.
Yeah.
That's when the arrogance of Scorpio turns into the utter power of manifestation, which is now I'm ready to be a contender. Like you're not a pretender. You're not pretending to be so like I got this all figured out and like I got all the occult information. Religion's bullshit. God doesn't exist. Nah, man, you're like one of God's ultimate warriors who is a contender, who's doing the worship, fighting on the warship by virtue of being able to take surrendered action. And that is such a paradoxical mix. And you have to have that humor within it. And that's why I say one of my quotes, my favorite quote, laugh with me, laugh at me, whatever, man, just laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's not about me. It's all about thee within me. And that's within you and within everybody. That's what it means to be part of this species, humanity.
Yeah, man.
And that's the greatest gift that we have. So regardless of what's happening out there, the weight and gravity of all this information you heard today in this episode, be grateful, like you said. Greet that sun every morning. I love that practice. Thank you for sharing that with us. And man, stay tuned for the next
absolutely
for the next one, because we'll definitely have you back. I appreciate you
100%,
you coming on, and I'll leave it with that being said. When the thoughts are calmly collected and the imagination is properly directed, the dots are easily connected. I'm your host, Nico. Remember who you are.